Hi, I am Sanmit. So we are going to start this solid state physics course, and we are going to start with the very basic concepts. And so the first thing that we are going to study is the geometry of solids. To know the solids, to know the structure of solids or materials, we need to know what are the geometry, what is the atomic structure, what is the lattice structure, what is the material structure of the solids. So for that, we need to know how lattices are formed, how do we quantify and how do we describe a system of 2D system, a 3D system in, in a geometrical manner. So the module one of this whole course will be geometry of solids. Many courses start with Drude model, many courses start with free electron model, and we whatever the things have been discovered before. But in this course, we are going to take a different approach. We are going to start with the geometry of solids. Then we are going to build upon that. We are going to build upon that, and then we are going to see the free electron model, the various electronic structure models. So okay, so we starting with module one, which is the geometry of solids. So the first thing that we are going to learn in this course is lattice and basis. So what is lattice and what is basis? So in this course, in this today's lecture, we are only going to see some the basic definitions of lattice and some 2D lattices. So and we are going to see some concepts regarding lattice, what can't, what is not called lattice, what are the conditions of making a lattice. So this is the stuff that we are going to learn today. Okay, so let's say we have a 2D space and we want to quantify and we have to quantitatively describe this 2D space. And so how do we do it? So there are we can, as we have seen in our coordinate system classes in high school, we can describe any 2D space by a set of points, an infinite set of points, in which we can describe by two coordinates x comma y, as you can see in the picture. So in this picture, we are seeing that there is a point, the green point is being labeled as x comma y. Okay, so after that, how to these are some very general comments. How to then quantitatively describe any point. Here we can see periodic or not periodic. It's a like a bunch of points, but it does not cover everything. So one way will be to just uh, indicate two indices x comma y for every point. But for periodic systems, for lattice systems with like solids, we have more order in the system than that. Doing only the quantitative uh, classification or the quantitative measurement of points just by making two indices, that doesn't capture the order or the periodicity of the solid. So what we are going to do is we are going to take a new approach. We are going to make some points, some periodic points, and we are going to reference or classify other points in the plane by a linear combination of the primitive vectors. What are the primitive vectors? Primitive vectors are something that we will define later on. So by this approach, what we will do is that we will take care of the order or the periodicity that the solid has. It's not an amorphous material, it's a crystalline material. There are solids that we are going to deal about are crystalline, they have order. And we have to leverage that order. We can't go in the general procedure, we can't take that because it will not give us any efficiency. Okay, so so basically, what we will do is we will tile the 2D spaces with points. Okay. So now you can see there is another graph where there are a periodic and like there are very various points. There are blue points which are in a periodic fashion. So we have to tile the whole 2D space. So we have to choose a set of infinite points. So this point, this whole thing, this is a set of infinite point. It extends in all directions. It's just a snapshot. It's just a small scale shot of the whole thing. But it there are points here, here, everywhere. There are points here, there are points here, and it extends to the infinite 2D plane. So this is the set of points which is described. So one point to another point, you can see that there is two vectors. One is a1 vector, another is a2 vector. So there are two primitive vectors which are linearly independent vectors from each other, and we can completely describe going from one point to other point by this two uh, independently linearly independent primitive vectors. So just see that every point in the set, for example this point, for example this point, every point can be described by a linear combination of these two vectors, a2 vector and a1 vector. So a1 plus a2, a1 plus a2, let's say now we draw a2, that gives us this vector which takes us this point from this point to this point. We can do 2a1 plus 2a2, that will take us to this point. We can do 2a1 plus, we can do 2a1 plus a2, that will take us to this point. Okay, so every point from this point, let's say this is the origin of what we are starting from this point we can traverse through and reach every point, every other point, by doing this, doing a linear combination of the primitive vectors. And these are the points of the lattice points. But what about a general point? General point, like let's say this point or this point or this point. What we can do is, so we said that it will be a linear combination of a1 and a2, and the coefficients will be integer. Then we will reach these points, the lattice points. If the coefficients are not integer, coefficients can be fractional, they are just real numbers, then we can reach literally any other point. If we want to reach these points, then we will go this much. It will be, let's say, n1 a1. When n1 is some real number, then it will be like n2 a2, where n2 will be another real number. So we can reach literally any point. So if we have some points like this, these are the lattice points, and this is the origin. From reaching one point to other, we can use n1 a1, n2 a2, where n1 and a1 are integers, n1 and n2 are integers. But for reaching any general point, n1 and n2 can be taken as real numbers. Okay, so any general point R can be represented as n1 a1 plus n2 a2, where n1 and n2 are in real numbers. Okay, so let us rigorously define a lattice. What is a lattice? A lattice is an infinite set of points which can be described as an integer sum of two or more linearly independent primitive vectors. In this case, it is 2D, so there are two linearly independent primitive vectors. But in the case of 3D, we will have three linearly independent primitive vectors, and so on. So for 3D, we will have three linearly independent primitive vectors, and the general point will be given as n1 a1 plus n2 a2 plus n3 a2. Okay. But what we are supposed to do is with the lattice, we are supposed to tile a space. We are supposed to describe a 2D space or a 3D space, which is periodic in nature, which has periodic components. So, but so that makes us a question. That makes a question: is that is a periodic structure guaranteed to form a lattice? If a structure is periodic, will it form a lattice? Answer is no, because let's say, for example, we see this honeycomb lattice. In this case, we can see there is a honeycomb lattice. There is some hexagons attached with each other, but you can see there are three kinds of 3 points: P, Q, and R. So another definition of the lattice, as we can see in the definition 0.2, is a lattice of this infinite set of points where each point sees the exact same environment as other points. But in this case, in the honeycomb lattice, you can see that the P and R, they see different environments. For the P, the environment is like this, and for R, it's like this. So P sees two inclined lines in the upper direction and one vertical line in the lower direction, and R sees the opposite: vertical line in the upper direction and inclined lines in the lower direction. So PRR does not see the same environment. Okay. So now we have to see la- that we saw what is lattice. We saw 2D lattices. We saw primitive lattice vectors. We saw that periodic every periodic uh, system is not a lattice. It can't be described by a lattice. So now we will see that. lattice is a hypothetical concept. The lattice points are not real. They don't live in the real world. So for describing the solids, we need lattice plus the atoms and molecules of that solid. So it is the basis, the atomic basis that we need. So we will discuss it in the next class. But before building upon that, we will see that what is the unit cell. Unit cell is the unit of describing or tiling the 2D space, which will help us to build the atomic basis upon it. So it will be any material. Any material can be described as a sum of two: the lattice and the atomic basis. Lattice is a hypothetical infinite set of points which tiles the everything. An atomic basis is the real atoms placed in appropriate positions. And for describing that, the concept of unit cell is a very integral part of that. So we will have tiled 2D space with a 2D lattice now. Lattice is the only set of hypothetical points that is periodic. And how do you account for real systems such as atoms, molecules, and how do you define the fundamental building block of such a lattice? So now we go to unit cells. Unit cell is the fundamental building block of any lattice. Let us define more rigorously. So definition 1.1. A unit cell is a region of space where if many such spaces and units are tiled together, then it covers the whole space. So like it's a space. Identical copies of that space is covered and tiled together one after another. Then what it will do is it will tile the whole space. It will cover the whole space. Okay. So we can see in this picture there is like I have drawn this picture and I have drawn the various points and all. So we can see that we can tile the same set of points. The points are the same. The structure of the points are the same, but different unit cells. We can see it can be a rhombic unit cell. It can be a rectangular unit cell. It can be having some funny shapes like the right below one, the fourth one, this one. It can have some funny shape. Everything can be possible. So there is, we can see that given a set of points, given a set of lattice points, the choice of unit cell is not unique. So in real world, we have to choose a unit cell and work with that. So how do we choose? How do we decide that which unit cell is more suitable, which one is more easier to work with? So what we have to choose is easier to work with and more fundamental rather than more complex and more complicated shapes. It will be easier to because we want to make our lives easy. Okay, so like as we can see that the tiling is never unique and we can create many sorts of unit cell given to the sets of points. Given the choice of unit cells, we would want to work with the smallest unit cell possible because that is the most simplest concept and that will be the most simplest one to work with. So now what we define is the primitive unit cell. Primitive unit cell is the unit cell which contains only one lattice point. In this case also we can in this these case also we will have seen that the primitive cell contains only one lattice point. So even the primitive cell is not unique. So then we need a very rigorous way to find a cell, find a unit cell which we can work with. So that is the Wigner-Scheidt cell. So Wigner-Scheidt cell is the set of points nearest to given lattice point than any other point. So let's say there are some points. There are a lot of points. Now, if we take this point, so what are the set of points which are nearer to this point than any other points? So what we can do is we can make some perpendicular bisectors. So this area, every point in this area is nearer to the central point rather than the other points. Let me draw it more clearly so that it's visible. So this the pink region. We said all points in the pink region are nearer to this point rather than the other points. Rather than this point, this point, this point, this point. So this is the Wigner-Scheidt cell. It will tile together to make the whole space. We can for this also for this point we can make a Wigner-Scheidt cell like this. There will be rectangular weakness sites here, 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 everywhere. So this will tile to make up the whole space. So this is the weakness site cell. So this is an example of weakness site cell. So it's a rectangular array of points, and we are constructing a weakness site cell. So the best way to construct it is draw perpendicular bisectors to see which points are closer to the central point, the point in consideration, and then go and like enclose the area. So the pink shaded area is the weakness site cell. It will be tiling together to give us the whole array. So there are a lot of types of lattices. So let's say there are honeycomb lattice as I showed. There can be rom rhombus kind of lattices. There can be this kind of lattices. There can be square lattices. But what do you do if there are points in between, like this, or like this, like this, like this? There are points here. In this, all the corners have points, but these also have points. Then what do we do? Then what we need is the basis. So we will see that this is the lattice, and the extra points that are that are the basis. These are real points. These are real atoms. So we need to take care of them. We can't leave them. Let's say there are atoms here, 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 here. So there are atoms like that. So then what we do? We do that these are the lattice, these are the lattice, and this is the basis. Let's say there are atoms here, then here, then here, then here, then here. Atoms are here also, but in middle, atoms are sitting like this. And what we do? We say that this is the lattice point, this is lattice point, this is lattice point, this is lattice point, and these things are the basis. It's just a part of the atomic basis or whatever basis we the whole like we call it. So the periodic solids are made up of basis plus lattice. Lattice plus basis. Lattice is more fundamental. Then we add basis to that. Lattice makes up the whole 2D space. Then basis makes up the real particles. Okay. So this is the whole thing for today. So what we are going to discuss in the next class is 2D lattices in more detail. In some more detail, we will see some more details, not much. We will see 2D atomic basis. We will see some 3D lattice plus basis systems. We will see FCC, BCC, simple cubic, face-centered cubic, body-centered cubic, simple cubic, a lot of lattice plus basis systems. We will conclude the session with some problems, and this will conclude the lattice plus basis part. Then we will start with a reciprocal space in the next to next lecture. So that is the plan.